Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're continuing work on our 72 Challenger, and below me, below you, we've got a whole bunch of parts taken apart that used to be in there. That's right, I've already made a big mess on our new shop floor, but for good reason. We have our front key member removed, and I've started the disassembly of it. I talked to Darren, and we decided, obvious, we're gonna be getting new ball joints, tie rod ends, all of that good stuff. So those parts are actually on their way. Ordered a good set of Moog front end parts off of Summit, so those should hopefully be here for me in the next couple of days. And new things here, whatever these are called, I couldn't tell you. But the main thing is, as long as we're taking everything apart and putting new bushings and everything else back in there, why don't we replace these rusty, crusty ball joints and tie rod ends. Actually, one of the tie rod ends is missing the Zerk fitting on it, so you couldn't lubricate it even if you wanted to. I've already gotten the old disc brakes, or drum brakes off, sorry, and the spindles. There are new spindles in our disc brake conversion kit, and I've just been plugging away at getting some of these things off. We've got some of our steering left, and I don't have a vise down here or a good way to hold this stuff in place now that it's off the car, so that may have been better to do on the car. Anyways, I'm going to save you guys a bunch of noise and beating and just extra noise you don't need to hear. Finish taking this thing apart. After that, we're going to go through, get it all cleaned up, prepped, painted, and then I think the assembly part will be a little more interesting than the demo part, because I'm really not trying to destroy anything. So let me get this thing deconstructed, taking pictures so I know how it goes back together. That's the important thing. I don't really have a book or a Haynes manual for this thing. Or anything other than pictures. So that's why I'm taking pictures, and hopefully I take enough pictures. So we'll just do a little snap of the fingers, and when we come back, this thing should all be in pieces, ready for prep and paint. Okay, we're back. We have most everything disassembled. The spindles are off. The key member is pretty much stripped apart from all the other stuff. I did make a boo-boo with the upper control arms and the ball joints. So, previous experience, these are all push in, push out ball joints. On this control arm, it is threaded in, but they wouldn't unthread even with heat and giant wrenches. They just wouldn't come out. So I figured, okay, well, let's just go back to plan A, what things normally are, and use the 20-ton press. Well, that worked. Unfortunately, it knocked most of the threads off of this and the threads off the old ball joint. So just because, we're gonna go ahead and order new upper control arms so we don't have to deal with this issue. The other control arm, again, the same issue, even with heat and penetrant and time, it would not come out. And the ball joints are shot. So I guess what do? You just buy new parts. I guess the first thing I've hosed up on this project so far, we've had to replace. But new parts, better parts, and we can throw this in the parts box of stuff to get thrown. Behind me, I still have the tie rods and steering arm attached to the lower control arms where the strut rods go through and the torsion bars. That's gonna be minor. The key member itself is down here on the floor. It's kind of heavy. I don't know that I want to pick it up, but I will. Oh. There's our key member. That is what I'm going to clean up next. I don't need to clean up the old spindles. We have new spindles, or the old control arms because we have new ones. But I need to clean up the K member, and then the lower control arms and the steering accessories that we are keeping. That's going to allow me to get these ready for paint. We have the Eastwood 2K chassis black project to go ahead and apply, likely via a gun, to a couple of parts. It's not a big, huge paint job, but I think if I tried to brush it on there, you'd see brush marks, and I really would prefer not to see it, even if it's going to be buried under this giant 440 engine and on the underside of the car. So let me finish getting this area cleaned up. If you can see below me, it's a big pile of old nuts and bolts and dust and dirt and crust from, well, 50 some years ago. So get that done, we'll come back, we'll have our new control arms, those should arrive for me tomorrow, and then we can start going ahead to get all of our new parts put back on the existing K-member and move forward. Good morning. For me, it is early-ish on a Sunday morning, about 9 o'clock. Well, not very early, but in the grand scheme of things, it's about 70 degrees outside. A beautiful morning to come out and paint the K-member parts for our Challenger. I have gone through the last couple of days, finished disassembling everything, washed all the big chunks off on the parts washer, hit them with the media blaster. I primed them yesterday with the Eastwood chassis black primer, let it sit overnight. I've already come out this morning and cleaned off and degreased the parts for a final time. I've got my 2K chassis black paint already mixed up in the shop. So let's just go ahead, get the paint gun, and lay down some paint. It is bright out here. We've got our first coat down. We're going to let this flash off for about 10 minutes. We'll come back, put on a second coat, and that should do it for us. So let's just skip ahead to that second coat. All right, we're back. Time for our second coat. Alrighty, well there we go. I'm gonna go back inside, clean my gun out where it's a little less bright and move on. Much better. Now, I bet somebody's asking, well Tim, you've got this giant paint booth, why didn't you set that up? Well, a couple of reasons. Over here is another project, you can see a little bit of what's going on for a future video. And also it's a lot of small stuff and I can do it outside where I'm not necessarily worried about a glass finish if I'm putting down clear. After all, engine bay parts under that big massive 440, so you're really not going to see anything. Maybe if you're crawling around underneath you might see the components, but you know, everything being considered, it's really a not super critical thing to have super perfect. But, you know, we're gonna do the best we can with what we've got to work with. And we did go ahead and replace some of the parts that were just damaged, like those control arms, the strut rods. You notice we didn't have those included here. Those are getting replaced because they were bent. So we're just doing, like I said, the best we can what we've got to work with. It's not a complete rotisserie restoration, although at this point, it's pretty dang close. Anyways, I'm gonna let this stuff dry, sit out and bake in the sun for the morning, and we'll come back and lay everything out. I don't know if we're gonna start replacing everything in this video because we've got some more parts waiting, but we'll see how far we can get. I feel like we are turning a corner and finally starting to reassemble things here. Now, granted, my work table is nothing to write home about. If you've got ideas or want to send me one, I could use one. Our plastic picnic tables, those aren't going to cut it. But what we've got is a bunch of parts. We have, like I said, our new control arms over there. Our new strut rods arrived yesterday, at least for me. And we're going to start getting this thing put back together. Now, we're not going to put it on the vehicle yet because we have to do the rest of our paint and prep in the engine bay and get that ready to go. But we're at least going to get these parts put back on loosely for all of our fittings, because again, we've got the new brake swap kit to put on, and I don't know yet if we're going to get a set of gunny wheels to put on this thing yet, because I don't really want to put the nice new rims and tires on only to be going through the rest of the paint process. So we'll see what happens with that. But we've got our tie rods to put back together, and I did take some photos of how many twists for the passenger and driver side for the tie rod ends, and one side is left-hand thread, one side is right-hand thread. Just got to figure out which is which. Clearly not that one. There we go. There's one. And two. And I had a baseline. Driver's side was 8 turns out on both ends, and then the passenger side, one was 6, one was 7. I'm going to return everything just to those settings as a baseline so we can get this thing to alignment and maybe be somewhere in the same ballpark as we were when everything came apart. Now, I've mentioned it once, and I'll mention it a second time and probably a third time. Everything is snug. It is not torqued down to tight spec by any means right now. We're just getting everything loosely assembled. And in the event I screw something up and have to take it apart again, I'm not going to have to pound out tie rod ends from the hardware. Now we have a little bag of parts with each of our tie rod ends, new cotter pin, a new castle nut, and a new Zerk fitting for our lubricant. So I'm going to go ahead and get that on. Got it right on the first time, a little 9:30 seconds. A fly just bonked me in the head. Again, pretty simple process. Just want to make sure you get these started straight and not cross-threaded, or you're probably going to have a bad day. Of course, you spend enough time trying to get these threaded and straight, you might have a bad day. Okay, now, take pictures of things so when you put things back together, you know how they came apart. Now, this was pretty easy to figure out, but never hurts to make sure you have pictures of how everything went. Oh, hey, what do you know? Those were supposed to be 180 off. because I can't look at my own pictures. Now that I've completed the Reading for Dummies course, I'm going to go ahead and set one of these in here. And again, I'm just setting everything in loose. Cotter pins, which I'm sure I'll lose somewhere, will, I don't know, get lost and I'll have to find more. Maybe I can get it in just enough. Nope, okay, well, we're gonna put the cotter pins back in one of these boxes and make sure we don't throw it away. Likelihood of that happening? Who knows? Anyway, I'm gonna get the other tie rod end assembled, and then what happens is this assembly sits back here, and then our arm goes in the cradle back here on the back of the key member, and then this stuff is assembled for right now until we start throwing on more of our other parts over there. So let me get working on that. Well, I've done a little work off camera because between then and now, we had a pop-up storm roll through here with downpour and hail, and you couldn't have heard me if I was yelling. So anyways, I got these other rear arms on, again, snug but not tight. The one thing we did go ahead and buy new along with those control arms, other upper control arms, is new strut rods from Mancini Racing, because, well, here's the original one and here's the new one. Can you see that shouldn't look like that? So we're gonna go ahead and slide these on, and then that's gonna bring us to a point of hopefully starting to throw on some of our new Moog parts on the control arms here. Whatever you want to call these things, I'm calling them control arms. So if you don't like it, too bad. Now the fun part is to make sure that everything goes in where it should, and I should have put these strut rods in before I put the rear trailing control metal thing in. So let me do that, and we'll get these strut rods in and move on. Alrighty, there's that for right now. There's two more parts I'm going to throw on here, and that's going to be these little doohickeys over here. They're back here. Alrighty, the last parts we're going to go ahead and throw on are these guys here. We've got our part. We have a boot that goes over here as well, so we'll go ahead and set that on. And I've been doing pretty good at not getting full of grease until now. Thanks. This is one of those times where you want to look at your pictures on your phone or wherever you took pictures with, because they are directional. And if you put them on backwards, you're going to have to take a lot of stuff off. In this case, the little ears tip inwards versus outwards. So we just need to be mindful of that when we're reassembling things here. We'll go ahead and throw our castle nut back on here. And the same thing over here on our driver's side. Well, that took a while. Weather, every time I try to record, it would downpour or hail, and we're in a big tin building. That didn't work. Then I had supper, then I had a meeting, but we're back. And what I ended up doing for these lower ball joint deals, at least that's what the box calls them, is I took my wheel bearing, my ball joint service kit, put this in the vise, come up here and show you. To get these boots on, went ahead, put this over it, and then gave it some taps with my dead blow hammer and seated on just like it should. Repurposing tools for their not so intended purpose. But it worked, it's on here. I got our Zerk fittings on here, and I did point them back so that they are not gonna be eating as much dirt as they would be if they're pointed forwards or to the sides, and they're still easily accessible. So I'm gonna go ahead and just set these on here again loosely. And my cotter pins are in the box of cotter pins over there on the workbench. Go ahead and get this put in. And seated. Now it's finally quiet with all the fans off. All right, go and do the same thing over here on the passenger side. There we go, and just like that, for now, all the parts are on that we're gonna put on. Like I said, we've got our other brake hardware, spindles, everything that's going to go on at a later time, but I wanted to go ahead and take all the parts we had, put them back together so A, nothing gets lost, and B, we kind of have an idea where we are in terms of putting everything back together. So for now, this is gonna go and sit in a corner, hopefully not very long. I do have just a little bit more media blasting to do back here on the firewall and touch up a few pinholes, talk to Darren and the amount of deconstruction to fill in maybe 3 or 4 pea-size or less pinholes. Maybe a pea-size isn't really a pinhole, but a little patch and then a couple little pinholes to fix. Way better than tearing the whole firewall apart and replacing everything there. So that's the next step. So we're gonna go ahead, like I said, table this for now, finish our engine area, get it primed and painted, get our undercoating on our fender wells, and then we can start mounting this back on and start putting that front end back together. One step closer, dropping that 440 back in the nose of this thing, and I'll just keep working our way back. So until the next video, if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button below, like the video, drop a comment. What are your thoughts? I mean, I would have loved to have been able to drop a QA1 front end in here. Wasn't in the budget, and I'm not big enough for sponsors yet. So anyways, we'll see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.